Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah wa ba'd. Now, so we continue with our monthly lesson regarding family issues, reading from this book by Shaykh Muhammad Ghalib called Hayatuna al-Usriya Bayn al-Waqi' wal-Ma'mul, our family life between the reality and that which is hoped for. And so we began this new section of the book, and this new section, it deals with the family life and problems and their solutions. And so he mentions the second issue. Now he mentions the second issue, which is the cause for mashakil and problems within the family. It is al-jahl bil-huquqi wal-wajibat al-zawjiyya. People being ignorant of rights. People being ignorant of rights, and likewise the marital obligations. Sometimes the men, they're ignorant of rights, or the women, they're ignorant of rights. In most cases, what you'll find is that a person knows what they have coming, but they don't necessarily know what's incumbent upon them to give from rights. When this is more important than you knowing your own rights, more important than you knowing what you have coming, is knowing what's incumbent upon you to give. Because that's what you will be questioned about. You're going to be questioned about, did you fulfill the obligations that were due upon you? So this is more important. Now, and so the Shaykh, he mentions, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ لِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِنَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ حُقُوقًا, that Allah, the Mighty and Majestic, has made for each of the two spouses rights. He has made rights for each of the two spouses. وَفَرَضَ عَلَيْهِ وَاجِبَاتٍ, and he has made there to be obligations upon each of the two. And he said, وَإِدْرَاكُ كُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا لِهَذِهِ الْحُقُوقِ وَالْوَاجِبَاتِ هُوَ أَدْعَى لِلْبُعْدِ عَنَ النِّزَاعِ وَالْخِلَافِ. He said, and each of the two spouses being cognizant of these rights and these obligations, this is better in terms of bringing about distance from disputes and differences. When both parties know what is incumbent upon them, and not just that, they know it and they adhere to it. They give every person who has a right his right, then this will lead to the absence of disputes and differences. لأن كلا من الزوجين سيعمل على أداء الحق والواجب الذي عليه. Because when a person knows the rights of his spouse, or the wife knows the rights of her husband, she's aware of those things, and she has fear of Allah, and he has fear of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, then the person will enact for the fulfillment of those rights and those obligations that are due upon them. وَبِذَلِكَ يَأْخُذْ كِلَاهُمَا مَا هُوَ حَقُّهُ بِعَدْلٍ وَعِلْمٍ. And likewise, when a person knows what his rights are, right, then that person will take his rights from the other person. They will take, meaning they will accept their rights from the other person, bil-adl, with justice, wa-ilm, and knowledge. Justice and knowledge. Person knows, for example, the rights that they have coming, right? They know what is their right, what isn't their right. Then they will take their right with justice, meaning they won't be unjust, demanding something which they don't have a right to. And oftentimes you'll find that as spouses, when you love each other and you care for each other, you fulfill what is obligatory upon you towards the other person, and you do extra. That's just what spouses do. We look out for each other in this way. You do for your wife things which are not necessarily obligatory upon you to do. Wife, she does for her husband things which are not necessarily obligatory upon her to do. And thus, the spouse who is aqil, he's intelligent, will appreciate those things because he knows that she doesn't have to do it. These things, okay, she has to do these things. These things over here, she's not obligated to do. You will appreciate those things. You won't sit back and complain when they're not done, because you know you don't have a right to it anyway. So when it is done, you will appreciate it all the more. فالزواج والحياة الأسرية ليس مبناها على المحاققة والمحاصصة والمحابسة والمحاسبة. He said that the marital life and the family life is not predicated upon al-muhaqaqa, yani that you're scrutinizing the other person. It's not built upon that. Naam, wal-muhasasa. It's not built upon having yani quotas. You got to meet this quota. If you don't meet this quota, then you're not living up to my expectation, and therefore you're not worth anything, right? Marital life is not built upon that. And likewise, calling people to account, which that each spouse, they are super critical of the other regarding all issues, small issues, big issues. You find that person nitpicking you and calling you to account for every single minute issue. This is not what marital life should be. Setting these types of quotas and high expectations on the other person that is in reality unreasonable. Now, this is not what marital life is about. He says that nitpicking the person for every issue, the kabir and the saghir, doing a tasamuh wa afwin, without having tasamuh, meaning that you don't pardon the person at all. You don't overlook anything. You don't overlook anything. But you want all of your lapses and slips to be overlooked. This person is delusional. Person was like this, calling the other person to account for every single thing as if you don't have issues, as if you are the perfect human being. Nah, this person is delusional. Person is delusional. For this reason, you have the statement of Abdullah bin Abbas. What did he say? Radiyallahu anhuma, that I do not like to demand all of my rights from my wife, out of fear that she would demand all of her rights from me. Because Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala said, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that they have rights similar to those that are due upon them within reason. Now, so this is not what marital life is about, nitpicking a person like this, right? He said that فَلَوْ كَانَ مَبْنَى الْعَلَاقَ بَيْنَهُمَا هُوَ الْمُحَاقَقَ فِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. He said if the connection between the two spouses was one of muhaqaqa, yani that you are scrutinizing every single detail, not one thing better be out of place. He says, then no husband will be suitable for any wife, and no wife will be suitable for any husband. فَلَا بُدْ مِنَ الْمُسَامَحَةِ وَالتَّغَافُلِ. So it is a must that we have musamaha, that we pardon each other at times, and likewise we overlook minor lapses and shortcomings. وقد قال الإمام أحمد عليه رحمة الله إن الخير كله في التغافل. Very wise statement. He said that all khair, all good, is in the issue of at-taghaful, overlooking others' shortcomings. Every form of good is in this. This is from nobility. It's from nobility that you overlook issues that can be overlooked. Now, you don't make a big deal out of every single thing. فَإِذَا وَجَدَ الزَّوْجَانِ زَلَّةً يَسِيرًا فَلَا يُنظَرْ إِلَيْهَا بِمُكَبِّرٍ. And so if the two spouses seize from one another a zalla yasira, small lapse, small thing that can be overlooked, he says then that issue, that small thing, should not be looked at with a microscope. What does a microscope do? It's something that's small, it makes it what? Big, right? He said that the spouses do not look at these small zallat like this. He says, and they don't blow them up, make big deals out of them. He says, min tamam al-inaya ghaddu tarf anha wa ka'annaha lam takun. He said, and from complete inaya, from having complete care and consideration for the marital life and for the household, is ghaddul tarf, is turning a blind eye, overlooking issues as if they were not even there. As if they were not even there. You see something that's small can be overlooked. You got to pick your battles. Everything is not a fight. Everything is not an argument. If something can be overlooked, if something can be pardoned, you overlook it, you pardon, you act like it's not even there. Act like it's not even there. He said that, now, فَإِذَا مَا أَقَلَّ الزَّوْجِ عَطَرَتَهَا وَقَلَّتِ الزَّوْجَ عَطَرَتُهُ. He says, so when the husband minimizes the slips and the lapses of his wife, he minimizes them, and likewise she does the same, then you will find that each of the two parties are able to forgive each other. When the spouse actually makes a mistake, you know that she's been overlooking your mistakes all this time. She's been overlooking your lapses, not making a big deal. So when you finally do see a mistake from her, you're able to forgive that. You're able to forgive that. And likewise, the same for the wife. When she actually sees something and she knows that her husband has been overlooking minor lapses all this time, and she's aqila, she's intelligent, then she will forgive and pardon when she actually does see something that is substantial from him, from mistakes and error. He says, وَيُعْرِضْ عَنْ هَذِهِ الْمُحَاسَبَاتِ الدَّقِيقَةِ, and they will turn away from these muhasibat ad-daqiqa, these very intricate types of calling to account and so on and so forth. He said that وَيَكُنْ هَذَا سَبَبًا لِاسْتِمْرَارِ الْحَيَاةِ, and this will be a reason for the perpetuity of the marital life. Overlooking faults, overlooking shortcomings, pardoning lapses, and minor slips. This will be a cause for the perpetuity. Imagine if you can't live like this. Somebody that calls you to account for every single minute issue, it gets irritating at some point. You may be able to deal with it for a little while, but at some point it'll get very irritating. But when the person overlooks, she overlooks, you overlook the small things, and those things that may have some substance to them, you sit down and you talk about them as a family, and you deal with them and you knock them out. It leads to what? Perpetuity of the family, longevity in the family life. He says, and likewise it leads to the uprightness of the family. وفي الغالب تكون هذه المحاسبة عند التقصير في الواجبات والحقوق. He said, and in most cases, this muhasaba, it takes place with this type of reckoning of each other. It takes place in a taqsir al-wajibat, and it takes place in shortcomings as it relates to the obligations and rights. فَقَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَ عَلَى زَوْجٍ وَاجِبَاتٍ وَلَهُ حُقُوقًا. He said, so Allah Ta'ala, He has placed obligations upon the husband, and likewise He has rights that are due to him. Just as He has done this for the woman. She has obligations that are due upon her, and she has rights that are due to her. And so the Shaykh is going to mention, and this is what we will cover in this sitting, inshallah ta'ala, some of the rights of the spouses. We're going to go into some of the rights of the spouses. It's not meant to be something exhaustive covering all of the closeness of the heart of his wife, and to make her heart lean towards him. Make her heart lean towards him. كما جاء في نصوص عديدة, as has come in many texts, from amongst them is the statement of Allah, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and live with them bil-ma'ruf, in a good way, in a good way. And this is everything from good dealings, from looking after her affairs, from good speech and kind words, showing her the best of what you got. Some of the people, they have good manners with their brothers, but they're harsh inside of their home. They're harsh, they're lions inside of the home. They may be kittens out in the street. Your wife has the most right to your good treatment and your good manners and your softness and your mildness. She has the most right to see that from you. He said, Allah Ta'ala likewise says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that they have rights similar to those that are due upon them within reason. Within reason. Likewise, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, اسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا فَإِنَّهُنَّ عَوَانٌ عِنْدَكُمْ. He said, treat the women well. Treat the women well, for they are awan with you. They are awan with you. What does awan mean? They're like servants to you. They're like servants to you. And the reason why he said this is istawsu binisai khaira, because they are like servants to you, because people, they historically were known to treat servants rough and treat them wrong. So therefore, he reminded the husbands that they are in this position under you. They are your wives, but they serve you, they cook your food, they wash your clothes, they see after your affair. Treat them well. Treat them well. Treat them kind. Now, وقد تقدم في حسن تعامله عليه الصلاة والسلام مع النساء أحاديث فيه نماذج جميلة كافية لمسلم. He said there's already preceded, in some of the other sections of the book that we were covering, how the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam would deal with his wives in a good way. He mentioned some narrations that were a small glimpse, a beautiful glimpse for the Muslim who is a muttabi', one who follows the sunnah, who is haris ala ada al-huquq, and he is diligent to fulfill the rights that are due upon him and to associate with his family in a good way. And from the examples of this, he's going to mention another beautiful example of good dealings, right? He said from the examples of his excellence in good dealings with his womenfolk, أنه مرة كان عند سلمة. On one occasion he's with Salama radiallahu anha. فحاضت, her cycle came on. He was with her and her cycle was on. وكانت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الخميلة, and she was under a blanket with the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. She's under this blanket with her husband. Her cycle comes on. He says, and so she got up out of the bed. She got up out of the bed and she left. She withdrew from him. Now, فقال النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, so the Prophet, he said, أنفستي? He asked her, meaning not the meaning of nifas, but meaning, did your cycle come on? Did your menstrual cycle come on? Naam, she said, naam. She said, yes. So the Prophet alayhi wasallam said, فَدِعَانِ. He said, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Come back and get under this blanket with me. Right? Come back and get under this blanket for me. Some men, they will be like, okay, your cycle on, no good to me right now. Right? Go ahead over there. The Messenger of Allah alayhi wasallam, he said, what? No, come back. Come back, get under this blanket with me. We will continue to lay and cuddle and the likes of this. He said, and this is from Jamil, this is from the excellent manners of dealing with him and the excellent manner of tawaddud and showing and displaying love for his wife. Likewise, the second right that the Shaykh he mentions, and again, this is not exhaustive. For something more exhaustive, our brother and teacher, the brother Rashid Barbi, he did a very nice lecture series when in Canada regarding the rights of the spouses. And I always recommend this to people who are married or looking to get married. He covered the rights of the husband, rights of the wife in great detail. So we advise with benefiting from that, bidnillahi ta'ala. And you can find it, I believe it's on YouTube and other places. But he mentioned some of these rights, ikhtisaran. Second right that he mentions, Adam al-idrar bizawja, is not harming the wife. It's not harming the wife. So you don't harm the wife physically, you don't harm her verbally, you don't harm her mentally, spiritually, in any way. Not harming the wife. فإنه على زوج الرفق بالزوجة في المعاملة وعدم الإساءة إليها. He said that it is incumbent upon the husband to display kindness towards his wife in his dealings and not to display harsh treatment towards her. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the khutbah al-wada', in his final sermon, he says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ فِي النِّسَاءِ. He says, fear Allah as it relates to the women. For you have taken these women upon the covenant of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, وَاسْتَحْلَلْتُمْ فُرُوجَهُنْ بِكَلِمَةِ اللَّهِ. And it is permissible for you to be intimate with them by way of the word of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. وَلَكُمْ عَلَيْهِنَّ أَنْ لَا يُتِئْنَا فُرُوشُكُمْ. He said, it is upon the women not to let anyone sit upon your furniture whom you dislike. No one is to sit upon your furniture whom you dislike. فَإِذَا فَعَلْنَا ذَلِكَ فَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ ضَرْبًا غَيْرَ مُبَرِّهٍ. And if they were to do that, then discipline them. He mentions a striking with a striking that is, it is not injure, a non-injurious striking. وَلَهُنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ رِزْقُهُنْ, and it is upon you to provide for them and to clothe them with that which is within reason. Now, I want to make a point of benefit here. Now, and it is as the ulama have mentioned concerning this affair of a darb, and striking the women, although it is something which is permissible in the legislation, with the details that are connected to it and the guidelines that are connected to it, the more righteous a person is, the further he will be away from it. For this reason, the Messenger of Allah alayhi never struck a woman. He never struck a woman, even though it comes in an ayah in the book of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Likewise, you see it in this narration here and other narrations. He never did it. For the more righteous and noble a man is, the further he will be removed from that. And the ulama, they mentioned concerning the guidelines of it, that it is something simply to catch their attention, to let her know that you mean business, that you're serious and you're upset. Now, to the point that some of them may say it's done with a miswak. It's done with a miswak. You tap her with the miswak, something just to let her know that, hey, listen, you got to listen. You kind of, you're going off the hinges right now. I'm serious about this. And you let her know that you're serious about whatever affair. But it's not that you beat her down, as you find some of the men. And they just trash their wives. They, slam them and they punch them and they do things that are indicative of cowardice, of sheer cowardice, that they will treat a woman in this way. And so this is as it relates to the guidelines of that. And we advise returning to the speech of the ulama regarding this issue. But it is not a beat down. It is not a beat down. This is impermissible. فإن كان التأديب يكون لصالح الزوجة وفي مصلحتها فلا بد من اجتناب ضرب المبرح. And so if the disciplining of the wife in order to bring about her benefit, it is to bring about her benefit and bring about that which is useful, then it is incumbent upon the husband to avoid a dar al-mubarrir, that injurious type of beating. He says, and one must deal with his wife in a good way, with kindness and softness. This is what is obligatory: kindness and softness. And again, this is as it relates to your physical dealings with her, how you speak with her. You don't speak with her in a way that some people they may not lay a finger on you, but they make you feel this small by the way they speak to you. All right, so you should avoid this type of speech with your wife. Speak to her in a good way. عدم التكليف وعدم تكليف الزوجة ما لا تطيق من الأعمال, that you do not enjoin upon your wife that which she is not able to do from work. You don't put too much work on her that she is not able to bear. The Shaykh, he mentions that the husband demanding the wife to do that which she is incapable of, وَبِمَا هُوَ خَارِجْ عَنْ وُسْعِهَا, and that which goes outside of the scope of her capabilities and her ability, هُوَ مِنْ بَابَ الْإِضْرَارِ بِهَا, this is a type of harming of the wife. A type of harming of the wife. وَتَكْلِيفْ فَوْقَ طَاقَتِهَا, and making her responsible for something which she is incapable of doing. And Allah Ta'ala, He has said, لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا, that Allah has not made any person responsible for that which he is unable to fulfill. So therefore the husband placing these types of responsibilities upon her wife, that upon his wife that she is unable to bear, she is unable to do these things, this is something which is not permissible. Fourthly, he mentions al-adl bayn al-zawjat, is being just between the spouses, between one's wives, in the case of polygyny, being just between one's wives. So if a man has more than one wife, if he has more than one wife, then what is obligatory, he says, is al-adl baynahun fi an-nafaqa wal-mabit, that it is obligatory upon him to be just between them in an-nafaqa, and spending, meaning that you don't, so to speak, because you always have to be just, but you can never be unjust, meaning you can't be a zalim, ever, right? But it's not necessarily obligatory to be even as it relates to marital relations, because that is an affair of the heart as well, and likewise gift giving. But as it relates to nafaqah, that spending that is obligatory, if you have more than one wife, then you must take care of them equally. You must take care of them equally, meaning as it relates to the bills and so on and so forth. So again, you don't let one's lights get cut off while the other has lights. You don't pay one's rent and the other, she has to pay her own rent. Like this, you take care of them equally and be just in that. So likewise, spending the nights, right? Spending the nights, you have to be just as it relates to this issue. والاجتهاد على عدم التقصير في حقهن, and that one strive hard not to have shortcomings as it relates to their rights and as it relates to fulfilling their rights. وغير ذلك مما سيأتي تفصيله, and other than this from that which the details of these issues shall come later in the book, inshallah ta'ala. Again, this is just an ikhtisar of some of the rights of the spouses. Now he goes into the second issue, which is the obligations that are due upon the wife. So these are the rights of who? Of the husband. Okay. Firstly, he mentions wujub at-ta'a lahu, is the obligation of obedience to him. It's the obligation upon her to be obedient to him. As Allah Ta'ala said, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. That the men are the قوامون, they are the authority figures over the women. They are the authority figures over the women. Why? Due to that which Allah Ta'ala has favored some of them with over the other. And due to the fact that they spend from their wealth, meaning they take care of them financially. They pay the cost to be the boss. روي عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما في قوامون أنه قال أمراء عليهن. Ibn Abbas, he said concerning the statement قوامون, meaning that they are umara, they are rulers over them. They are rulers over them. Meaning that, the Shaykh says, تطيعه فيما أمرها, that she obeys him in whatever he commands her with. He commands her, she obeys. Now, he says, نعم من طاعته ومن طاعته أن تكون محسنة لأهله, and from the obedience to him is that she is good towards his family members. She is good towards his family members. حافظة لماله, and that she is one who safeguards his wealth. She safeguards his wealth. Secondly, التمكين من نفسها, is that she gives him access to herself. She gives him access to herself. And this doesn't just mean any marital intimacy. It definitely does mean that, but not that alone. Perhaps he wants her conversation. He wants her attention. He wants her attention. Perhaps he wants a hug, a kiss, whatever. Well, she gives him access to herself. She doesn't prevent him from herself. He says, إن أراد الزوج الاستمتاع بها فيجب على المرأة ألا تمتنع. He says that if the husband wants to enjoy his wife, he wants to enjoy his wife, it is obligatory upon her to not prevent him from doing so. Due to what is reported in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet alayhi wasallam said, إِذَا دَعَ الرَّجُلَ امرأته إلى فراشه فلم تأته فبات غضبان عليها أي الرجل لعنتها الملائكة حتى تصبح. He said, if a man calls his wife to the firash, he calls the wife to the firash, to the bed, meaning for relations, and she does not come, she refuses him, and therefore as a result of her refusal of him, he is angry with her, then the angels curse her until morning. The angels curse her until morning. It's a very subtle point, as we mentioned in the lesson that we did a few weeks ago. That the ulama, they consider nushuz to be, or from the aspects and manners of nushuz in this marital discord, right? The disobedience of the wife, is that even if the wife gives the husband one thing that may make him okay, but he wants something else from her, and she prevents him from doing that, then this is nushuz. If she prevents him even a kiss that he may want, this is nushuz. Right? So it's important for the women to pay attention to this issue. it's important for them to pay attention to this issue because this is something which causes problems in a lot of households, a lot of marriages. From the aspect of the man and from that of the woman. In another riwayah, إلا كان الذي في السماء ساخطا عليها حتى يرضى عنها. Is another narration that the ending of the narration is different, and it says that when she does this, that the one who was في السماء, who is above the heavens, is ساخطا عليها. He is angry with her until her husband becomes pleased with her. Until the husband becomes pleased with her. So this is from the rights of the husband as well, is that she gives him access to herself. And again, it could be conversation that he wants. Maybe he wants your attention. Maybe he wants you to listen to him talk about his day. And you're, scrolling through Facebook, or you're just not interested. So she should give him access to herself and whatever he desires from her. Thirdly, عدم الإذن لمن كره الزوج دخوله في بيته, is that the woman does not allow anyone to enter his house whom the husband dislikes. Due to what has come on the authority of Abu Hurairah رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يحل للمرأة أن تصوم وزوجها شاهد إلا بإذنه. It is not permissible for a woman to fast while her husband is present except with his permission. This is speaking about the supererogatory fast, of course, because Ramadan is an obligation. Therefore, she does not need her husband's permission to fast Ramadan. But as it relates to supererogatory fasting, if her husband is present, she needs to seek his permission before she fasts a supererogatory fast. ولا تأذن في بيته إلا بإذنه, nor is she to allow anyone to enter into his home except with his permission. Likewise, the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ لَكُمْ مِنْ نِسَائِكُمْ حَقًّا وَلِنِسَائِكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ حَقًّا, that you have rights that are due to you from your wives, and your wives have rights that are due to them from you. فَأَمَّا حَقُّكُمْ عَلَى نِسَائِكُمْ, as for your rights upon your women, they are not to allow anyone to sit on your furniture whom you dislike, nor are they to allow anyone to enter into your home whom you dislike. And this goes for anybody. Strangers, relatives, anybody who may want to enter into your home. This is a thing that is connected to the idhn of the zawj, of the husband. Now, fourthly, عدم الخروج من بيت الزوج دون إذنه, is that she is not to leave the house of her husband without his permission. بل قال بعض أهل العلم رحمهم الله حتى في زيارة أبيها. He says some of the people of knowledge say even if that was to visit her father, even if it was to visit her father, now she must seek the permission of her husband. لأن زيارة نافلة, because that visit is a supererogatory action. It is nafila. But obedience to the husband is what? Wajibah. It is obligatory. Now, he said, وَمِمَّا يَدُولُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ حَدِيث إِذَا اسْتَأْذَنَكُمْ نِسَائِكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ فَأَذَنُوا لَهُنْ. He said that if your wives seek your permission, if they seek your permission at night, meaning to go out to the masjid, this narration is referring to, then grant them permission. So it's an indication that they have to seek your permission to go to the masjid. How much more so to go to Food Lion? Right? I want to go, and go sit with sister so-and-so and so on and so forth like this. They have to seek your permission. The ulama, rahimahumullah, they use this narration as evidence that the woman is not to go out of the house of her husband except with his permission. Now, fifthly, ta'deeb az-zawja 'inda nushusiha, is that the husband has the right to discipline her when she is disobedient. And we mentioned this issue in brief earlier. He said, but if the woman disobeys her husband in a command that he has given her, أو خالفته في شرع, or she opposes him as it relates to something from the legislation of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, such as she stops praying, She stops praying, for example. Naam. Or at-tahawun fiha, or she's being lackadaisical as it relates to the prayer. أو مخالفته في أمر الخروج من البيت, or she opposes him as it relates to this issue that we just mentioned of going outside the house. She picks up and leaves whenever she gets ready to. Now, and the likes of this, follow and is for the husband at this point to admonish her, firstly, nextly, or secondly, that he he boycotts her. Now, he can boycott her. ثم له, and then thereafter, yani, it is for him that he may discipline her physically with those details that we mentioned earlier. Now, this boycott, though, yani, what do we intend by way of that? The boycott is something which is done inside of the bed. It's done in the bed, meaning you don't. Okay, I'm gonna just leave out of the house and stay gone for a couple of days. Rather, it's done inside of the bed. Yani, you still lay with her, but you don't touch her. You don't touch her, right? And this is an indication of your displeasure with her, of you being upset with her. Not that you take the issue, you take it out to the street and you spread it around the masjid, what your wife is doing, and so on and so forth. Now, this is an aib. Oftentimes you find that the spouses in general, the husbands and the wives, they have an issue with the spouse, and they go and speak about that issue to people inside the masjid or to people within the community, and they speak about the issue, knowing full well that they want to stay with the person. And now you spoke about your spouse to people that are outside of your house. Now, not from the perspective of seeking advice, seeking counseling. You just venting, and then you stay with the person. Now people looking at your spouse crazy. They're looking at your spouse like, I don't know why she's with him. I don't know why he's with her. So you boycott her, but you keep it inside of the house. Keep it inside the room. No? And if you can prevent even the kids from knowing that you're upset with one another, this is ideal. No? Like this. He says, so with these details, كما قال عز وجل والتي تخافون نشوزهن, he said, those women whom you fear nushuz from them, فعظوهن, then admonish them first, wahjuruhun, and then boycott them thereafter, fil madaji', boycott them in the madaji', in the bed, wadribuhun. Thirdly, lastly, last step he mentions this physical discipline. Next he mentions from the rights of the zawj is khidma az-zawj, is that he has the right to be served by his wife. And the text in this regard are many, and some of them they have already preceded in the service of the wife for her husband. He said, وَيَدْخُلُوا فِي حُسْنِ عُشْرَةٍ, and this is something which enters into good companionship and good dealings. As Shaykh al-Islam, he mentions Ibn Taymiyyah that it is obligatory upon the wife to serve her husband bil-ma'ruf, with that within reason, with that which is within reason, that which is known according to the customs of that particular people. Now it goes back to urf and custom. So he mentions, Shaykh al-Islam, he mentions min mithliha li mithlihi, from the likes of her, women like her, what they do to serve men who are like him. He says, and this is something which varies in accordance with the condition. For khidma al-badawiyya, so the khidma, the way that the Bedouin women serve their husbands, is different from how the women who live in the city may serve their husbands, and vice versa. And that service of a woman who is strong and capable of serving her husband on a high level is not going to be the same as a woman who may have health issues, and maybe she's weak physically and so on and so forth, but she still is to serve him in accordance with her ability. Now, and the last point that he mentioned, and we'll conclude with this, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is mu'ashara bil ma'ruf, is that she is to deal with him in a good way. She's to deal with him in a good way. Similar to that which we mentioned earlier, from how the husband is supposed to and he deal with his wife in an excellent manner, from good speech and good dealings in terms of how he interacts with her and so on and so forth. she as well is to have good mu'amalat with her husband. الواجب عليها التعامل بالمعروف في مثل هذه المواقف. So it is obligatory upon her to deal with him with that which is ma'ruf, that which is good and customary in the likes of these circumstances, due to the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that they have rights that are incumbent for them, or they have rights due to them that are similar to those that are incumbent upon them. There's an indication that what? There are rights that are incumbent upon them. And so just as the husband is supposed to treat her kind, she is supposed to treat him kind. She has the most right to his good treatment, his respect, his veneration. Nah, more so than anybody. Sister she may be in her car, she gets pulled over by a policeman, shows him the utmost respect. Yes, sir. Oh, I didn't know I turned left, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. Right? She comes home and talks to her husband like he's nothing. Like he's nothing. He has the most right to that respect. He has most right to that respect. The women amongst the Salaf, they will say that we used not to speak to our husbands except how you speak to your leaders and your rulers. Naam, calling them by the best names, showing them the most respect and veneration. That he has the right to that. نعم فذكر القرطبي رحمه الله عن ابن عباس أنه قال لهن من حسن الصحبة والعشرة بالمعروف على أزواجهن مثل الذي عليهن من الطاعة فيما أوجبه عليهن لأزواجهن. القرطبي, he narrates from Ibn Abbas, he said that they, meaning the women, have rights from husn al-suhbah, from good companionship and good interactions with that which is ma'ruf upon their husbands, similar to those that are due upon them. It's an indication that what? They have to give their husbands that, from a ta'ah, obedience to him, and that which is obligatory upon them to give towards their husbands. Due to this, there's come in the hadith, خَيْرُ النِّسَاءِ الَّتِي تَسُرُّهُ إِذَا نَظَرَ. The best of women is the woman who pleases him when he looks at her. She pleases him when he looks at her. He is pleased by her appearance and the likes of this. And تُطِيعُهُ إِذَا أَمَرَ. She obeys him whenever he commands, and she does not oppose him in herself, meaning she gives him access to herself, and nor does she oppose him as it relates to maliha, her own money. Her own money. She doesn't oppose him as it relates to that, and do that which he dislikes her to do with it. He says, so therefore, لا يرى منها إلا البشاشة. The husband should not see from her except a cheerful and pleasant countenance. وحسن التعامل, and good dealings. And likewise, generosity. In addition to that, she takes care of her person. She takes good physical care of herself. Now, فالمرأة في تعامله معها من حسن العشرة تطيعه فيما يأمرها به. He said, and so the woman, as it relates to her good dealings with him, then she obeys him in that which he commands, من غير معصية. If he commands her, as long as he commands her with something that does not entail disobedience to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Because of what? لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية خالق. There's no obedience to the makhluk, to the creation, in disobedience of the Creator. If he commands you with something that is in disobedience to Allah, you don't obey him in that. But if he commands you with anything else that does not contain disobedience to Allah, then you must obey him in that. It doesn't have to be a religious issue. He commands you with anything. As long as what he is commanding you to do is not entail disobedience to Allah, you must obey him in that. He commands you to buy Wonder Bread instead of what's the lady named Sally? What's her name? Sarah Lee. Right? Sarah Lee. I like Wonder Bread. Don't you go to the store, you make sure you get Wonder Bread. You obey him in that. Right? Now, he says, وَهِيَ فِي ذَلِكَ صَابِرًا. And so as it relates to these issues, she must be patient. مُعِينَ لَهُ فِي أُمُورِهِ, and one who aids him and assists him in all of his affairs. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. We'll stop here. The next point, I really wanted to get to the next point, but we'll save that for next time. The next point is a very, very, very beautiful point, which leads to some of the issues and problems in households, and is ad-da' fi idhar al-muhabba bayna zawjayn, weakness in displaying love for one another. Some of the people, they get married, and at the beginning of their marriage, that excitement that they feel just to be next to that person, they lose it at some point. And they become weak in displaying their love for each other. And this leads to problems. Leads to problems down the line. But that's the next point. We'll cover that, inshallah ta'ala, in the next sitting. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وفيكم بارك. Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas. فيكم بارك.